Canada's cornerman, Callon McGregor.
Nice motherfucker from Canada. Sick. What they doing in Canada?
I actually really like this spot.
And Jasmine's live for a sub. Cachoeira leaves her neck exposed all the time.
But this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
That definitely, I think, in some of the handicappers I talked to, has influenced the gambling line.
I'm not really a fan of him at all.
I'm generally always the underdog.
Second round, bumming subs.
Best bet of the card. That's the baddest motherfucker on this card.
Tune in to Don't Tap podcast.
Don't Tap podcast. We are back for the second time in 1 week. First, it's either feast or famine with us, I guess. It's either we're not around or we're around too much, annoying the shit out of you. And Billy and I have been at each other on at least one fight on every card for the past little while. There's been a back and forth. Obviously, we can sort of recap the idea of Paddy Pimblett basically just punking Bobby Green in a, what would I say, maybe a poor fight IQ decision, probably the nice way to say it. But good job on the Paddy Pimblett and good job on the card, man. I think you had a pretty solid card. Talk about that.
Yeah, it was a solid card here at Don't Tap. Give out 3 picks, and we recorded it a little bit earlier than what we usually do. Like, I think we record that 2 weeks in advance. And the Shauna Bonin line, I remember I was talking to you about it, and I was speaking in terms of it was going to be like minus 300. And that line came crashing down. It was like we kind of got cold feet on it, but I'm glad we went with the sides that we did. I tried to warn you about the Paddy the Batty. The only part that kind of fucked me up on the night was betting Molly Meatballs, but I guess I'm a sucker for that. It was a good night for me. I only made about a unit, but hey, in this game, you take a unit and you walk away, but it could have been a crazy night. If Molly would have won, I probably would have won like fucking 8 units.
Yeah, Molly was sort of the beginning of the end for me. It was a late 2-piece parlay ad on my ticket when I dropped it on Instagram, and it just, for me, yeah. I mean, in retrospect, Bruno Brazil, the reach was too long. Good body work game plan, those knees up the middle.
Yeah. Fight nerds, Jim. They just have an aura about them besides Kenya Krzyzewski.
Yeah, man. You can't really mess with them right now. Momentum is real. Winners win. And you feed off your teammates, right? So you can't really argue with that. So definitely, I had a decent start of the night. I was like, okay, it's going to be one of those nights, but don't get too overexcited. I mean, Patterson comes in with the sub. We knew that was going to, clap, even though it was a bit chalky for a prop. I felt very confident. It hits. The 2-piece parlay hits, and then everything came crashing down and finished with Leon not winning by decision. I put that one out. It's not that I wasn't so strong in that. It just felt like the bet that needed to be made, in my opinion. I guess everybody you either where you were going on the dog or I was going Leon decision, because I felt Bilal would push it all the way to a decision. It was going to be greasy. So if you're on the favorite, get better value at decision. I didn't think he was going to finish Bilal, and Bilal just looked amazing. Those entries, the difference between him and Usman, Usman was shooting from a wider, he was shooting from more of a distance out. He wasn't setting up his takedowns and pushing him up against the cage the way that Bilal was. He was like getting him up against the cage, firing so rapid fire, and then that distance that he closed after that last punch that he throws was so short that Leon just had no choice but to go down, or at least start to give up the takedown. So great job by Bilal Muhammad, and congrats to the champ. So we will dig in and we will move forward to a UFC fight night where I will run a disclaimer, because I have to. Because I'm a homer for the UFC guys in Canada, and you may think that Mike Malot's my favorite fighter, or you may think that Jasmine Jasdavicius is my favorite fighter. They are not. Big fucking surprise. My favorite fighter was Carlos Condit until he retired. My favorite active fighter is Corey Sandhagen. So I'm going to be biased as fuck when it comes to the main event in that one. But Corey Sandhagen will be something that we'll talk about in a little bit. I think the line is absolutely insane. But we'll get into the matchup and why I think there's a lot of avenues for Sandhagen in that one. But I digress. I have a couple dogs. I have some props. I don't have one chalk money line. Everything's plus money. So it's going to be an interesting podcast. I'm either going to get ripped apart by you, or we'll back it all the way to the bank. So we'll see. But Billy, you take it away with your first spot. Let's go.
Yeah, let's get straight into the 2-piece for the weekend here. We'll start off with the one leg, and I won't talk too much about it. I'll leave the meat left on the bone for Abzat Mirzakhanov there. And second leg here, the Bill side of it, Shire Bullet here in the co-main event. Say what you want. I'm shocked that Michelle Oleksiejczuk is even fighting in this fight. I mean, Kevin Holland absolutely ripped his arm off. And he got another fight. So God bless him. Keep on getting those paychecks. But Shire Bullet, fresh off the movie scene, he's going to go out here and get a knockout in rounds 2 or 3. But just for this portion of the show here, Shire Bullet, Amzat plus 101 there on FanDuel is what I was looking at.
Definitely like that one. I think that the one thing about the Share Bullet Oleksiejczuk fight is obviously we know that Oleksiejczuk does bring that power, that pressure, and while that does play to his advantage in most fights, obviously not in the Holland fight where he gets taken down and his arm taken right in front of your president or whatever is going to happen for you guys coming up very soon. But the reality of the fact is I don't know if his style in this one really is going to play to his advantage. Share Bullet, he basically, I can't even say his goddamn name, but Share basically, he's able to work laterally really well. He's able to change his footwork and his stances. He catches you from multiple different ways. He's very creative, very dynamic. When you have a guy who's going to march straight forward and you know what he's going to do and his head's going to be on the line for the most part, he needs a guy to do, like Oleksiejczuk needs a guy to dance with him and sort of stand in the pocket and throw, and then his power needs to overwhelm somebody. This is not a good matchup for him. And I think that although Share has left us questioning at times in his last couple of fights, there's been moments where you're like, what the hell is happening right now? This guy's a huge favorite. Why is this so close? I think he's going to probably get more comfortable. You see this after 2 or 3 fights in the UFC. Guys get more comfortable. They get into their zone of fighting under the lights, and they get locked in. So I like him in this spot. And I may as well bring out one of my pieces for the day. It's a parlay piece. Oh, sorry, he was going to be a parlay piece, and I was going to put him into a parlay, so I was indicating him as one, and that's Nurmagomedov. I like him inside the distance here. I mean, right now you can get, I think it's at Betway or Bet Online. It's like plus 125 by KO. I mean, 3 of his UFC wins, like of his 4 UFC wins, sorry, 3 of his 4 UFC wins have come via KO for Nurmagomedov. And he started to fight the upper echelon. He's starting to get into that next level of fighter. And this is, for me, just I don't know, man. Menafield, I'm surprised that he's still around. And I know that he's sort of up and down with his wins and whatever else, but his style, he's been knocked out quite a bit. I mean, if you look at it, 3 of his 5 last fights, he's lost via KO. And it's not been nice. Against Olberg, it was not nice. So I just think that this is a very interesting one. And how quickly was that turnaround? Were you saying we were talking in the back room beforehand?
Yeah, that's the main reason why I'm actually fading Alonzo Menafield, man. I don't think that he should be fighting, bro. That was May 11th of this year, the UFC St. Louis card. 2 months to recover from a knockout like that. I mean, I get it. He was on a 4-fight win streak prior to that fight. But I feel like if Amzat was a little bit more active, he's only fighting 1 time a year, so only like the real UFC fans know him. I mean, he would be a way bigger favorite, especially with the OV behind his last name. But this is definitely one that I think that goes under the radar by the public, and I think it's going to be a smash spot for people that kind of know a little bit about Amzat Nurmagomedov. Undefeated fighter. He's looked like the goods, light heavyweight, 35 years old. The time is now. Alonzo Menafield coming off of a fight where he just got knocked out less than fucking 90 days ago. Usually supposed to get a 90-day suspension when you get knocked out. I don't know how this works because the Russian commission is way different. That's the reason why Shire Bullet has to fight overseas, because Dana doesn't think he'll get it passed by the U.S. commission because of the eye thing. So what the commission's like out there is way different than it is what we're used to on a week-to-week basis. And I think that's going to be the fate of the week here on the Don't Tap podcast, is fading the 2 people that I kind of don't think that should be fighting.
Why mess with a good thing? I mean, last week what happened was I came in with a fight line where the line was a little bit big, but I thought it was a parlay piece. At the same time, I was on the prop for the submission with Patterson. You came in with your 2-piece, and it was conveniently one of my pieces that I liked. You added another piece that I agreed upon with now Shara this week, Bannon last week. So I think we'll just go with that, man. I think that, unless we see something else present itself, we can sort of, although it's sort of your piece out of the gate as a 2-piece, I'm in full agreement, and I think Nurmagomedov is going to ride here. I think that even actually hitting the plus 125, really looking at this, even I know it's 15 points and then being greedy, but I just don't see a submission. I think he would just club and just TKO, just beat the shit out of him on the ground if he had to. I think Menifield's going to get knocked out pretty bad. I would even look at maybe the round 1 KO and see if there's some value on that as well too. Round 1s and 2, whatever way you want to look at this to find value in your book specifically and where you see it is. I think this is a smash spot in my opinion. And I know there's been times with Nurmagomedov where you've sort of felt like, oh, I don't know. I think it's his uppercuts that are going to place a problem. Menifield does dip his head a lot when he'll throw his jab out there and pepper from the outside, but if he gets touched a little bit, he dips his head down really bad, and that's his instinct to go to the wrestling, even if he doesn't commit to a shot. So what happens is uppercuts for days. Nurmagomedov throws some vicious uppercuts. Mark my words, come back to this moment when it possibly happens, because it could definitely break down exactly like that with the uppercut to finish the fight. So technically, you've drawn out my first spot or one of my spots, so I'm going to let you come in with another spot again, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, this one we might not be in agreement with, but I'm gonna have to say it, man. Underdog of the night. This is gonna be one of those ones where it's like nothing on the tape is gonna back up the bet, but this is just one that I feel in my gut that the market's just recency bias written all over it. Caio Fernandez minus 360 here. I mean, yes, he's a dangerous striker. The bookies have been kind of just wrong on him throughout his whole entire career. In the LFA, he was lined as an underdog in all 3 of his LFA fights. He won 2 out of those 3 fights. In his debut, he was a trendy underdog pick that everybody was picking against Mark Diakese, and he made Mark Diakese look like a D1 wrestler. I mean, I feel like the recency bias will be stuck in our mind about how he looked against Trevor Peek in his UFC debut, but there's pieces away that I could take away from that I kind of like. I actually think he's going to cage grapple a little bit here, kind of slow the fight down, kind of use the clinch and pull off a decision here. I mean, plus 275 on the UAE Warrior in the UAE. I mean, tell me where I'm going wrong here. I mean, it's going to be one of the dog picks that I'm going to probably wait on a little bit in the week. I'm going to see a lot of people parlay Fernandez, and I'm on Muhammad Yahya as a dog play of the week.
I'll be honest, I don't have a really big take on this one. It's mostly because I just haven't dug into it enough. I would only be going on sort of a vividness bias based on what I can remember from their fights and scraps of it. I could dig into stats and try to really give you something on the fly here, but I'm not going to be ignorant. What I have heard and what a lot of people are doing is fading the hell out of what you just said, fading the hell out of Yahya and the whole narrative that he's at home and anything to do with that or close to home. Just because the guy just doesn't seem, and I'm going off from what other people have said, he just doesn't seem to put it together well. But that being said, I haven't dug into it enough myself, so I'm just not touching it. But at the same time, the one thing I will say is an outside caveat when I'm not really looking at this fully. If you feel this is at a certain level of MMA, no matter what, at a big wide line, you got to almost look at maybe hitting the value on the dog anyways. When you have a lower level of MMA regardless. But once again, I'm now just talking in circles. So
this is the Oban Elliott pick from last week's episode. We backed the hometown underdog there on the money line, and that was a very unpopular pick. Any fucking prediction video that you watched last week was telling you Calnon and fucking Preston Parsons were like the locks of the week. And we backed the hometown dog there at plus 350 by decision as well, played it as well. I'm going right back to the well, bro. I think Muhammad Yahya is going to win the decision here.
I think there's dogs on this card. I don't know if that's the dog, but I'm not going to hate on it because it would be ignorant for me to do it because I'm just not fully into the fight, like I said. But definitely a dog of the week for you, which then I guess could, I have a bunch of different dogs that are barking. I'll leave the main event to the end, but I'm going to bring a dog to the table that I just think it's crazy that she was even like not favored in this fight. I think the line is wrong on this. I think because Mackenzie Dern is Mackenzie Dern, she is favored in this fight. And I think that, dude, I don't even know what we're looking at here. I don't know what the bookies are looking at in this situation. In the stand-up, dude, Mackenzie Dern's stand-up is absolutely, it's horrible. It's really, really bad. She gets beat up really, really bad. She's had moments where she can be a dog in there and sort of create chaos. But, dude, her stand-up is absolutely atrocious. And the one thing we got to look at is the same way that I was completely right on the Jandiroba one. We used Mackenzie Dern as this gauge for wrestling takedowns, to get into jiu-jitsu. And she just doesn't have that either. So she's not comparable to Jandiroba and what Jandiroba just did to Lupi Godinez. So that fight's just not even in the same thing. And Jandiroba has better stand-up than Dern. She's more defensively sound and lands a bigger punch. So Dern, despite bringing chaos and maybe landing a crazy submission the same way a KO artist would land a big KO, she doesn't impress me. Her wrestling is just not there. And on the ground, she's been swept. She's actually lost position many times, although she is a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. Is she dangerous? Is the sub potentially there? If you're going to hit Dern, honestly, man, hit her by sub. Anybody who's even looking at Dern on that one side. I see some love coming in for Dern, even more. People saying even though it's a little like minus 125, it makes sense. Just tell me where it makes sense. We have a dominant wrestler in Lupe Godinez who, yes, hasn't gone to it at times, but only because she's gone to her hands. We have her camp that's around her who, let's just look at first, her Olympian sisters who are wrestlers who are training with her regularly. She moves her camp from Canada down to Grasslow's camp. She's training. The boxing is getting better with every time. When a fighter up and moves like that, it just tells me so much. Her killer instinct, the will to fight so frequently. She was one of the most frequent fighters over the last 2 years. I just don't see why this line is like this. I get what Jandiroba did to her, but now we sort of see what Jandiroba is. She's not, people sort of shit on her because she looks like Rob Schneider. The reality of the fact is she's solid as fuck. She really, really is. It's just at the highest level, sometimes she doesn't look like the top of the heap. So for me, I just think that this is definitely a Loopy spot, especially at plus money. I get it if she was like the favorite and you didn't want to take Loopy in this fight and you know you might want to stay off it, but why not take the plus money in this? It just only makes sense to me. I'm probably going to take Loopy first to money line and then probably by decision, because the one thing about Dern is she likes to take punches, and she'll take them for rounds and rounds, and then she'll look like Lord of the Rings, like she's looking for her precious, and the fight ends and she loses by decision. So for me, give me Lupe Godinez all day long. Perhaps a harsh, breakdown of Mackenzie Dern, but I just think at this level now, it's getting a little ridiculous that she's just not closed that gap. And if she's not, what are we doing? Like OnlyFans doesn't fucking count. I'm sorry.
I'm right there with you, man. I like Lupe Godinez in this fight. It just feels like one of those fights where the market was just completely wrong on her last fight against Jandiroba at minus 200, and I was all over Jandiroba in that one, and I was telling you the da-da-da-da-da about Lupe, but it's kind of a reverse in this one. I actually think that, yeah, Mackenzie Dern's striking defense sucks, but she does pose power, and she uses that power to get takedowns because her wrestling sucks. And that's where I feel like Lupe Godinez could win this fight. She's going to win the minutes in the wrestling. And while Mackenzie Dern's throwing shit up off of her back, Lupe's just going to be on top. And the striking exchanges are probably going to be somewhat closer than what I would want. But I think Lupe wins a decision, 29-28, probably like a split decision.
Yeah, for me, obviously, like a little bit of Canadian bias. There's a whole bunch of bias all over this one for me. I just may as well call this the bias fucking end of the podcast. But yeah, man, I just see in the matchup, it just doesn't make sense for me. Like, there's so many times that people will say, "Oh, the grappling's really good," but then like you'll see, like not even just cappers, just people talking about it or people online, and they'll say, the grappling's so good, so they just sort of lump wrestling in with jiu-jitsu, and they assume that both things are going to be good, and they don't really dig in and think, well, wait a minute, she can attack with so many submissions. But at the same time, she also gets swept in her submission situations, and her wrestling is just atrocious. If you can't get it there, and you're only scrambling to get it there, then that's a lottery ticket. So for me, I'm with you on that. Lupe, I think, is the side. And right now, she can be found for like even money up to about plus 110, maybe still in the book somewhere, but you're probably looking at about plus 105 at best right now.
What's her decision prop at?
But I think that's what cracks, because Dern is a hard ass. Let me take a look. You'll probably get to it before I do, but
it's probably a decision.
The over is minus 225, so it's obviously expected to go to decision, just to give you a perspective. And Godinez plus 125. So I would be in on that.
I'd probably just bet the money line at that point.
Yeah, no. I get it. It's pretty close, but I just feel so confident in this one. But at the same time, maybe I should just heed nicely and just stick with the money line. So, but why don't you bring your next spot to the table? I think we're both on the same page with that one. I have a crazy dog that I think a lot of people are going to be either one way or the other in the main event, and then I have a crazy ass prop play that I think that everybody needs to hit. If you don't hit, it's crazy because the line came out for it and it's pretty wide.
This one here is going to be a total play for me. It's probably my favorite total of the weekend here is in this Guram Gudiladze and Jordan Vucinic fight here. Just bet a lot of money on Jordan Vucinic a couple weeks ago. Him and Miranda Maverick as a 2-leg parlay. And that's kind of like a prime example on like a side note of like sometimes we get caught up in watching these UFC cards that these other organizations are going on. Like this week's a prime example. You could plug in a couple PFL legs and then have one of these big favorites on the UFC card close out a parlay for you where you could just kind of set yourself up. But as I digress, I like Jordan Vucinic a lot here. I mean, 145, former 145 Cage Warriors champion. He won the belt beating Morgan Charrier, and then he beat Paul Hughes as well in the rematch versus Paul Hughes. This is the reason why I kind of like the over. It's probably one of the bloodiest fights you'll ever see in MMA Cage Warriors history. It went all 25 minutes. Don't let the recent performances kind of clog your memory if you're looking at this on Tapology. Yeah, Jordan Vucinic's been able to submit lower level opponents, but he's usually been a decisionator. He usually fights hard for 15 minutes and just wilts these decisions out of these fighters, and they kind of end up just gassing out. Guram had this aura about him when he first got signed to the UFC, being Chimaev's training partner. But I mean, since that Gamrot win, he took a 2-year layoff, comes back, hasn't won a fight yet. His cardio hasn't looked that good. He's had a full camp for this fight, so that should help out his cardio. I think this fight goes over 2.5. Fight goes to distance. Favorite prop bet of the night.
Yeah, I honestly don't hate that. And although I heard some people that are sort of, I think, sort of going to the window for Kutaladze in this one, I don't know really why. I think that him coming back, the cardio issue is definitely not been dealt with. And then for him, who was it? It was against Brenner. It just looked bad. It looked really bad. And if you're going to tell me that Jordan's going to come in with a potentially grinding, and from the little bit that I did watch on tape, he's going to come in, now you're confirming it, a grinding sort of grappling, grindy affair to sort of wear you down and work on your cardio. I mean, even if he opens up his hands at like going to that late second to third round, he could grind him down and get him tired, and Kutaladze could be sucking wind real quick, and he's proven that happens. So I don't hate it at all. I wasn't invested in that one, but I think I may take more of a look into that one as well too, because I just think that when you see a guy that just sucked wind, that can't be fixed. Like you can't fix cardio like that. Like you can't, unless you're taking stuff to fix it in the moment, which is illegal, right? So unless you're taking stuff that's allowing you to open up your lungs more, that's not going to happen. So therefore, I think I always would side with the grappler or side with the wrestler, someone who's going to be able to get to the cage and work that chain wrestling and get the grindy affair going. So I'm with you on that one, man. I like the pick, and I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, I like the over in that one a lot. How many times do we see people fight on short notice? They go in there, it's not their best performance, but they stay in there for 15 minutes and then they win their next fight.
Yeah, I'm with it. Definitely. Okay. Well, should we do this? Because I have the main event. That's going to be my dog of the week. I'm just going to say it. Corey Sandhagen is my favorite fighter, and there's no way that you're going to give me plus 250 on him, and I'm not going to jump on it. We can talk about that, or I can bring you my crazy prop, and then we'll finish with the main event.
I'm here.
And do you have one more spot or no?
No, I'm all ears. Okay.
There's nothing, so just quickly, let's look at the Tony Ferguson by sub. It's plus 800 right now.
No.
Okay.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Michael Chiesa. No, I'm 100% doing it. Michael Chiesa. If we're looking at it right now, and let me just make sure I can actually see this.
That's what you need to look at is Michael Chiesa's Instagram. What has Michael Chiesa been doing this whole entire year that he's been off from MMA? He's been doing commentary and he's been doing jiu-jitsu, and he just got like some shit on
I'll be real with you. The fight IQ is like cardio. It can't be fixed. I'm sorry. I don't care what to commentating he's doing that. That's even more for me. He's one step out. And once again, this is a little sprinkle. I know some guys that are even jumping heavy on the, we're looking at a guy who's lost 7 fights, right? So I'm not thinking that there's a high, crazy chance that Tony Ferguson were to win. But I think that his win condition is a sub. And I think Chiesa just gives up. If you watch tape on him, dude, it's sort of crazy. A high-level wrestler gives up submissions all the time. All the time. It's really bad. Like it's really, really bad. So Ferguson, like I said, by sub, 9 of his 25 wins come via sub. Chiesa, 5 of his 7 losses are by sub. 3 of them specifically by Darce choke, right? And people are going to play at the Tony Ferguson Darce. He's only won 2 by Darce. But I dug into this shit. I went back and watched some of his fights where you're seeing transitions where Chiesa is exposable. He's exposable in a lot of situations. And don't get me wrong, if he is just focusing on the jiu-jitsu, and that's been a thing for him, and he is in there to win, great. But the line is just so wide for me that, I mean, I would like to have the Tony Ferguson submission prop in the plus 1,000 marker and more. But for me, at plus 800, I'll take it. I'm fully down for it. I'll sprinkle on it. I think that it could very well happen early in the fight or late in the fight, whether he gets Chiesa a little bit tired late in the fight because he just keeps coming, or early in the fights catches him when he's dry. That being said, Chiesa could also just run a wrestling heavy game plan if he stays smart, mixes it up with the strikes a little bit, and stays out of the crazy chaos that Tony can bring, even if he's washed and almost retired. He should win this, but the line's just so wide for me. I wish the sub was a little bit more, but for me, I just think it's a big prop number still for a high probability prop. High probability props for me got to hit. So I think, you know, the fate of a guy who's fought everybody at the cream of the crop. Chiesa's 1 foot out, dude. He has been for a while. Some of his fights have looked really bad recently, so we can say he's done jiu-jitsu on Instagram, but I ain't betting on that shit at minus whatever the fuck that is.
1 foot out screams last fight on their contract. The fucking owner saying that I think that you should retire because I don't think that you should be fighting anymore. And now he's going up a weight class to 170 to take on a grappler. Then he just got submitted by Bobby Green by arm triangle choke and Nate Diaz by guillotine choke in the year 2022. Nate Diaz has only done fucking boxing fights since
most fighters when they're about to retire wait, right?
I'm just
they'll go up and wait.
I'm not saying,
but like for the point of that, that's not really, that's a reverse point, right? Like that's him 1 foot out the door.
Point. I'm just saying, if you look at Chiesa's Instagram, all he's been doing is jiu-jitsu, all he's been doing is grappling. This is the value trap of the week, where the bookies have to set prices where the only way you can bet on Chiesa is in a 3-leg parlay, mixing in other stuff, and they're hoping that you fuck up with the other 2 legs. And then the line's high enough where you can attract bettors to bet the Tony Ferguson side because it's 2 familiar name opponents to the casual fan. So when people see the price tag, it's an eye shocker. Like, what the fuck? Michael Chiesa is the biggest favorite on the card. What are you telling me that I shouldn't know? And I'm telling you that I hear you, but like Tony Ferguson, Tony Ferguson 3 years ago,
fight IQ's been atrocious. And
it's not about the
1 foot out.
It's about who's actually training. Let me know. Give me some information about Tony Ferguson's training camp leading into this fight. I don't even hear the David Goggins bullshit anymore.
But once again, you're digging too deep into this, right? If I'm sprinkling on a plus 800 sub, if I'm sprinkling on a plus 800 sub,
I'm just saying,
I'm sprinkling on
added one another color to a belt. I'm just saying, Chiesa just added on another to the belt. He's been grappling. He's been training. While I definitely feel you, Chiesa's been finished in 6 out of 7 of his losses. And I was right there with you sitting on this podcast. And I was screaming. It feels the reverse roles. I was screaming to you and Nick about this time exactly last year. It's just
I'm out on it, buddy. It's a sprinkle on a prop. There's enough value there at plus 800 for a guy who submitted quite a few people.
In the losing, though, there's no value in losing. I'm not with the Chiesa throwing him in a bunch of parlays. It's just like this is a value trap. Like if you told me if you were coming with the Magello Zajac over Shower Bullet and you hit me with some points, I'll let you slide. But the Tony Ferguson, if you're at home and you're listening and whatever side you lie on, give me 2 things that shows me that Tony Ferguson has even trained for this camp, and I'll stay off.
But I would still, even off of the fact of just what he's done in the past and what he knows with his jiu-jitsu, just for that value and the fact that Chiesa just gives up submissions, that you don't understand what I'm saying. I don't care what you say about like what he's doing in camp here and what person's doing there. If we just look at even in stats and on paper, that's enough for me at the plus 800 for the submission. And you're only sprinkling coffee money on this one. You're not. This is actually not even a play of mine. I moved it up, bumped it up the rack. This is something that you're sprinkling and touching. Once again, something that I don't think is going to happen at a crazy high clip. But if there's a submission in this fight, it's from Tony Ferguson. If there's a finish in this fight, I think it's from Tony Ferguson.
No way. Michael Chiesa submits Tony Ferguson in a pretty probably.
Oh, man, I'm making you a reel if that happens. But I will move forward because we do have to get the party rolling. I'll jump into what my actual third spot is. I know we'll be on the same side, at least to some degree, and you'll at least sort of be echoing some of the stuff that I'm saying. I got Corey Sandhagen at plus 250. And for me against Umar, this is just a no-brainer. Umar, let's attack one of the first things that we can look at, the idea of a level check. 4 out of the last fights that Corey Sandhagen has had have been 5-round fights. He's used to 5-round fights. He's getting ready for 5-round fights, mentally, physically, everything that goes with it. So he knows how to push a 5-round fight, a game plan for one, and we know he's a strategist. So people talking about cardio and everything else. I mean, although Umar in his last fight, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. Although he was running a wrestle-heavy game plan and pretty much dominating most of the fight and won a pretty solid fight, and we'll get into what happened to him in the first round, he was sucking wind the whole time. And I'm just wondering, like, when does that shoe drop? If it drops, maybe it doesn't. Maybe he can push that all the way through and he looks tired, but he can run this wrestle-heavy game plan. But he's not a wrestler by tradition. And Alamakov, I think is how you say his name, he turned him into a wrestler in that last fight. In that first round, he drops him. And I just think there's just, for me, it's the 5 rounds. It's the huge jumping level in competition right now that we're looking at. Corey Sandhagen is one of the best fighters on the planet, in my opinion. So for me, it's just Umar on one side after being dropped as well too. I mean, he showed that he can weather the storm. I mean, he showed a lot about his character in the ring as a fighter. He was able to, work it through and get to his wrestling, showed fight IQ. There's a lot of big pluses, but the fact that this line is so wide when you have a potential title contender, title challenger here, it just doesn't make sense to me. Let's look at the points for Sandhagen. The fight IQ is absolutely high level. And with his striking, he runs the show. He sort of sets everything up. And although that Umar does have this crazy dynamic striking, what Sandhagen does with his striking is just next level. He's able to run stuff like, say, Adesanya does. He freezes you up. He's constantly making you guess. He's switching stances. He's throwing a jab up. He's making you think about this, the knee feint. He's just mixing it up so many different ways, faking a takedown. Whatever it is that he's doing, there's so many variances to his movements. He actually can get you tired just from that alone. And I could honestly see this playing out on the feet for a little while. And Umar is sort of trying to find that big shot. And you just see sort of Sandhagen dance around, maybe not even land a lot. It might be even a little bit boring, but then start to work him and get him a little bit tired, drag him deep. If I'm Corey Sandhagen, I'm dragging this motherfucker deep, and I'm going to try to take him out late in the fight. I can see Sandhagen, even if he gets taken down, runs great butterflies. Traditionally, the Nurmagomedovs will attack from the side, and they get to the legs, and then they get you up against the cage. That's sort of the way that they attack and get you, get into the wrestling and the grappling. So the butterflies might not be there, but I think Sandhagen can get, like, he springs off his back. He doesn't stay on the ground too long. So for me, I mean, Sterling did get to his back and obviously did what he did, but for the most part, he's able to get up off his back and get to work. So I just think that the fight IQ is there. I think that we saw some, not necessarily holes, but just saw that Nurmagomedov was human in his last fight. And if he's human and we saw a little bit there, then Sandhagen definitely did. Sandhagen watched that whole fight. Is going to want to try to drag him into deep waters for sure. I think at plus 250, it's a no-brainer for me. I'm not touching the fight any other way. I'm just going to hit up money line, call it a day, and be okay with my bias and take my ball and go home.
I like it. I like the confidence. But I just can't get behind it, man. It could just be a little bit of recency bias. Because everything that you said about Nurmagomedov's last fight is true. Was fighting another Muslim fighter, so maybe there is like a fond respect for him on short notice and him taking the fight, and it's his UFC debut, and he just kind of vaulted him later on in that fight. Could be one of those. Who knows? There's no confirmation of that. But the only thing that I just can't get behind is, for the longest of time, I think Umar Nurmagomedov's the number one contender. Him and Sugar's the fight that everybody wants to see, and that's the fight that they're going to make around this time next year. I think Umar's better than Corey Sandhagen everywhere. Striking-wise, technically sound is Sandhagen, but I think Umar's 10 times faster than him. Like, if they punch the thing on the punching bag, which isn't really MMA, but if they punch a thing on the punching bag, I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov is going to be 10 times faster than Corey Sandhagen. I just don't like the spot. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the main event from last week, but in a reverse of that, situation does not favor Corey Sandhagen fighting over in UAE. Not the best, the time difference, the crowd. I mean, that's everything that he's going to feed off of, though, and that's everything that you probably want Sandhagen to get up for this fight. I mean, obviously, the value side is going to be Corey Sandhagen in any fight. That's a 3-1 favorite over him, and the dude's right behind him. But Nurmagomedov gets if fights aren't rigged, yeah, Corey Sandhagen should probably win. But if fights are rigged, you know what you're going to see here.
Yeah, I mean, I know I get what you're saying, and I can't even really argue if someone's on one side or the other of this fight because Nurmagomedov is the truth, man. He is real. He is at the highest level. I just think that in the last fight, that Sandhagen is be able to see some holes in that stand-up. I think he actually is more technically sound in the stand-up. Is he so when Nurmagomedov lands something big or a spinning attack or even with some of his kicks and everything else, it looks really nice. But I think as far as the calculated technical striking and as far as picking an opponent apart piece by piece, I think he sort of proved that was sort of failing in his last fight a little bit because he didn't have really an answer of what to do with Nurmagomedov. He just kept coming at him in that fight until he had to finally just say, okay, wrestling it is. I'm going to lay on top of you. And well, he was active, but he went to the wrestling. He went to, put on his wrestling singlet in that one. So for me, I just think that there's going to be avenues. And don't get me wrong, it's going to be a hard one. And I think someone put it best. I can't remember what podcast I heard it on, but Sandhagen's going to have to be perfect. He's going to have to be perfect to win this fight.
I feel like Corey Sandhagen is underestimating Umar Nurmagomedov. He's walking into this fight like, who the fuck is Umar Nurmagomedov? I've seen the tape on this guy. This guy hasn't done shit. I've been there, done that, fought champions, did this, did that. Shit, if Sean O'Malley didn't have over blah, blah, blah amount of views and followers, I would be the champion. That's what Sandhagen's thinking in his mind.
I just heard him on an interview, so it's actually not exactly that. He's not exactly like he's discounting him at all. What he was discounting was how wide this line was when he's a guy who's fought champions, when he was supposed to be fighting for the belt, when he is the guy, you know what I mean? So from a fighter standpoint, you have to understand that. He's not guys who break down fights every week. He's like, look, I am the guy, I earned it. He's not like the egotist at all. So for him, he's like, and I know obviously I'm a fanboy, so whatever, but I'm more a fanboy of the style. I think it's fucking ridiculous, not of the awkward country boy.
You can't tell me he doesn't have a cocky side to him, and it's in a good way though, where he
but I think it's more because of the line though. I think that's all I'm saying in the context of when he was asked the question. I think it was more in context with the fact that the public is so far one way, and he's like he's got to buy a little bit of that real estate back by saying what the fuck. More or less. I don't think he's actually discounting his talent level. I think that would be a poor fight IQ move, and that's just not his brand.
He's been discounting and dissing Umar Nurmagomedov in these interviews since this fight was scheduled around the end of summer last year, dude. Every interview is like, I don't know.
But I mean, here's the thing too. Like, he didn't have to take this fight again. He probably didn't have to take this one again, right? It fell off, and he took it. He took the fight, and there's something about that to me too. That's sort of where I started at my point where I was like, he's obviously seeing something. There's something there. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's going to be a good one, man.
Easy fight for him. And Corey, I bet you if you threw out the cameras and all that, and you asked Corey Sandhagen, is this an easy fight for you? He would say, stylistically speaking, yeah, but I am fighting in his own country, so I'm always going to be the underdog. Look at the betting odds. That's probably what his real sentiment thoughts are. Umar Nurmagomedov is thinking, fuck this guy. So it's a great main event. It's going to be one for the fireworks. Whatever side you're on, I feel like if you're on the Sandhagen side, yeah, place your fork right in the value. And even if you do lose, I mean, fuck, dude, how wrong could you be? But I think Nurmagomedov gets his hand raised, and I'm pretty confident in it.
This is also a great situation where if you did have a parlay and you had Nurmagomedov right at the end tailing, this is a great. This is the definition of a hedge situation where you're getting great value on all the positives that I just said. In I think it's a closer line than it should be, so there's a higher probability of the dog winning. So it's like, I don't know. I think that's probably one way you want to look at it. If you want to take away anything from what we just went through back and forth, that might be the way you want to look at it.
And I think that's the way you do it, bro. You have like your little 5 to 6 leg parlay where the last leg of those parlays have Nurmagomedov in it, and they're sitting at, let's say, Cal, like plus 500, plus 600, plus 800, and that you just need Nurmagomedov to cash. Then you throw down on the Sandhagen money line, and you kind of hedge yourself, put yourself in a perfect scenario where wherever the night goes in that main event, you could just sit back and be a fan because you're gonna have money in your pocket. Like the line's high enough.
And you know what? It's likely even though I still be putting Sandhagen out as the play, it probably will be a way I do approach it. Obviously we're talking about it right now for everybody to hear too. So not a bad way to look at it when you have.
I think if Sandhagen wins, and the reason why I'm very confident on Umar, but I do think if Sandhagen wins, his main win condition is honestly him by submission. I think he can fuck around and get a submission on Umar.
It'd be interesting. He's sticky out. Like, I know that the one thing is Sterling got to his back, right? So, I mean, I can't really say much, but he does have great butterflies, works well off his back, but we'll see. But yeah, man, it's going to be a good one. If you want to just recap, just say your pieces really, really quickly, and I'll say mine.
Yeah, we had the combo play, 2-leg parlay, Shire Bullet, Amzat Mirzakhanov plus 101 was what I said.
And that's adopted as the Don't Tap podcast parlay. We'll make that an early prelim parlay. And
yeah, we just got it. We'll shop because you usually end up getting the best odds for those type of plays. And then the second play I had was underdog of the night, Muhammad Yahya. A little bit too. You can invest a little bit and win a lot on that decision prop. I think he can win a decision in his home country. And then the last play of the night for me was actually a total fight goes the distance and Guram Gudeladze and Jordan Vucinic. Vucinic usually is custom fighting 5-round fights. And now he's fighting a 3-round fight. You could say he's on short notice, but is it short notice really, or is this a continuation from his last camp? Because I had a lot of money on him in that Cage Warriors card, and he kept on saying, UFC, call me. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm training in camp. I'm going to get a finish today, and I'm being the UFC by next week. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, no, I liked your breakdown of that. I'm even going to look at that fight closer to maybe pick a spot and a side on that one. So Vucevic sounds like a potential way. I love fading bad cardio, and fading it with good grappling and wrestling is maybe the way to approach this. So I definitely like that spot. I came in with Lupi Godinez at plus money is ridiculous to me. We know that Dern's wrestling isn't very good, and we know that her boxing is not good at all. And we know what, if you put like these 5 or 6 different girls into a circle that have all fought each other in Lemos and Jandaroba and everything else, I mean, Dern has not come out good in that jumble of women. So Mackenzie Dern is a fade this week for me. I'll take Godinez at plus money, probably plus 105, plus 107. Depending on where you're looking and what book you're looking at. Next, I would bring in Mirzakhanov. I like him at inside the distance at plus 110. I think he's going to finish Manofield, who just gets beat by KO pretty consistently. I think 3 of his 5 in the UFC have been by KO or 4. So, yeah, I like Mirzakhanov there at plus 110 inside the distance just to be safe in case a random submission happens. It's only plus 125 for KO, plus 110. Don't be greedy. And lastly, we'll take a look at Corey Sandhagen, plus 250 as the dog of the week for me. I just think that there's just too much value there. Maybe Godinez is sort of the dog of the week. We'd say Sandhagen is the value dog of the week for me. The line is too wide, and you're making it easy for a fanboy to bet for his favorite fighter. So I like the Tony Ferguson submission at plus 800. That's a sprinkle prop that you shat all over, and that's okay because we got to have spots that we go back and forth on. So I always love that.
Can I give out a flyer of the night prop here?
Very quickly.
This is just a sprinkle. It's probably not going to hit, but we just got to do it because if it hits and we don't have money on it and we just gave her out as a dog in the night, we got it. We got to sprinkle on that Lupi Godinez by knockout in rounds 2 or 3 with Mackenzie Dern striking defense.
I mean, eventually that damage is going to accrue and that give up is going to happen. That give up to like, you know what, I'm done doing. Like, there's gonna be a moment in the cage where she's getting bopped around, and she's gonna be like, I'm just going to OnlyFans. Like, this is not worth it anymore. And that moment will happen. Is it against Dern? It could. So it's not bad to look at if there's great value. I don't know if you said the numbers on it there. But,
it's gonna be above 30-1. The highest odds that you can get in MMA is betting women's knockout props.
But Mackenzie Dern by decision will actually, Mackenzie Dern by decision. Lupi, bad slip. I hope that doesn't happen. Godinez by decision at plus 125 is going to be my play. But I do like the maybe sprinkles on the KO rounds for 2 and 3. Not a bad way to look at it.
Just to cover your basis, you put 1 unit on the decision prop, and you just put a little quarter unit on the rounds 2 or 3 by knockout. Even if you wanted to do a 1/10 of a unit on them singly, I mean, it's probably one of those type of bets you bet $5 or $10 and you come away with $100.
For sure. All right, man. For Billy Briz of Pub Sports Radio, I'm Calnon McGregor. Tune into the Don't Tap podcast.
And we'll break it all down every night.